In May of 2009, Skylar was born with gastroschisis. That is a short gut syndrome, and basically what happens is her body completely lost the ability to get water into her body. She was literally born inside out. This tube right here is stomach, liver, pancreas, spleen, small intestine, large intestine, bladder, and the right ovary. When that happened, our world stopped because, as I just kind of alluded to, we had a very forward-thinking, very out-of-the-box office. And this stopped us dead in the tracks. At that point, I just said, you know what, I don't care what it takes. I'm going to do whatever is necessary to give this girl a normal life. To make matters worse, at the end of the first week, that bowel ruptured. And she ended up with sepsis. She had fecal contamination in her bottle. That actually is the poop that leaked into her gut. They ended up giving her a colostomy that lasted for 8 weeks. And then they kind of reversed it and got her going again, and then it blew out again. It destroyed our family. Our oldest was the youngest goalkeeper to make the women's Olympic development team for soccer, and she had to quit. Lexi would stand there for hours to go see her baby and would rock her, even though it's a motorized rocker. And we were there for a year. She had 2 colostomies, a resection. If you look at her in this picture, it looks like she's a perfectly healthy, normal child. An hour after this picture was taken, her body went into acute dehydration. And this is after we revived her at the hospital. I don't know if anybody watches the shows where they talk about triage in the emergency rooms, but when you show up to the hospital, they take the sickest people first, and that's why some people wait forever. I actually had doctors taking Skylar out of the car in the parking lot to manage her. It was a horrible time. And then when the bowel almost ruptured, they did the surgery, they did another colostomy. She was in the hospital for a full year. This little thing right here is called a Mickey button. It's not a Disney souvenir. It's actually where they poke a hole right straight through your belly so they can do force feeds, and they hook up a tube and they inject formula in there seven days a week, 24 hours a day. And she wasn't doing well. The first time she went into the acute dehydration syndrome, I became an expert on water. The bowel shut down, and essentially what happens is she lost 20% of her body weight in a matter of hours. And so I literally went through every water filter, ionizer, nutritional aid, support, water machine, you name it, I tried it. I had used and owned more than 8 different alkaline water machines before I discovered Kangen. And honestly, I had more problems with them than it resolved. Plates would corrode, there'd be mold in lines, you couldn't clean them, the kids were getting sick, and so I became a rather strong opponent of alkaline water ionizers. And to this day, ironically, I still am, and I'll explain why in a minute. But it was a rough time for us. I didn't discover this when I was looking for something great new. I was looking to keep my child alive. If you've ever taken care of a child or you have kids, most people complain about going through a box of diapers a week. We went through a box of diapers a day. And they were liquid filled, and they would just explode. Every morning she would wake up, and literally the bed, if the diaper leaked, would be running down the sideboards, the pillows, the blankets, the stuffed animals, everywhere. She suffered with horrible distension gas. She had cramping. The diaper rash was so bad, we had an industrial green diaper cream that it's like if you've ever taken hamburger off the styrofoam tray and it's just like red, beefy, that's what her bottom looked like. And so we couldn't get away. When they sent her home, she had 100 hours per week of home health care. And so that was our life for the whole second year she was alive. And then this lady comes in, her name's Amy. She came in for some of the biofeedback and for the endocrine balancing. And you know, she's like, oh my gosh, you just have to try our water and it'll be fine. And I was just like, lady, you have no idea. I can explain to you how pH is wrong and it doesn't work. And you're crazy. I understand. It's a scam. There's mold issues. There's heavy metal toxicity. And about 6 weeks later, we were waiting on some test results, some rather critical test results for Skylar. And Amy was in our office for about 5 minutes. And in that 5 minutes, the doctor called. and it said, look, you know, Michael, it's not good. Skylar's got anemia. Her bowel is hemorrhaging. She's bleeding in the stools. She's not absorbing any of her fats. She's not absorbing any of her proteins. She hasn't gained any weight in 6 months. So we've now officially diagnosed her with failure to thrive. Failure to thrive is the doctor's definition of your child is dying slowly, and there's nothing we can do. And so I get this news, and Amy sits there and goes, look, Dr. Michael, Skylar doesn't have to suffer because you're too stubborn to try the water. I'll give it to you for free. And instead of being overjoyed and great, awesome, I was actually angry. And I got mad at her. I couldn't believe she said that. I kind of almost kicked her out of the office. I said, look, I got nothing else to try. Bring me your water, and I'll run these tests in a month, and I'll prove to you it doesn't work. And she was all excited, and she said, okay, great. And she jumped off the table, runs out the door. I adjust another patient. I've tried to call my wife, and she comes back, and she's like, okay, Dr. Michael, here's Sky's water. And, you know, the charge only lasts for 4 days, so you'll need more water by Monday, but I'll bring it to you. And I'm like, whatever, just leave. So I go home. That was a Thursday night. And I said, hey, babe, here's what the doctor said. Here's some water for Skylar. There's nothing else to do. And we had a long, hard cry. We were really overwhelmed. And that weekend changed everything, because within 4 days, 80% of Skylar's symptoms were gone. All the technology and all the stuff that we had been doing started to work, and it worked fast. Her belly started to go down. Her inflammation was down. The hemorrhaging was down. The cramping was gone. And then about a week and a half later, I'm shaving, and she screams bloody murder, the panic type of scream, and says, you know, Dad, there's a snake in the bathroom. And so I go running, and I'm panicking. She's 3.5 now. And I'm like, where? And she goes, in the potty, Daddy. I'm like, where? And she goes, right there. It came out of my belly. It was the first time she'd ever had a solid bowel movement. And she thought a snake had crawled out of her belly. And so amidst tears and crying, I did what everybody does today, and I whipped out my phone, took a picture, and sent it to my wife, and bought a machine. That's what sold me. I didn't even ask. 6 months later, we removed the feeding ports. And I really want to stress to everybody, I bought this machine because my daughter pooped. None of the research was out there. None of the information was accurate. There wasn't anything like that. And I bought it strictly because it worked. So I'm going to get into some science. I'm a doctor, but I'm not a science junkie. So here's pictures of Skylar at 6 months. This was her at a year. This is recent. This was this last May for her dance recital. So she and Lexi are best friends, are inseparable. But it really sent us reeling because, you know, why water? You know, in school they tell us the best water you can drink is the cleanest water. Well, the reality is the difference between the healthiest person and the sickest person is broken down into 2 parts. Muscles, ligaments, bones, organs, etc., all add up to the 28% of the person that's not water. And here's what we found out. Not all water is equal. Distilled water is by far the worst water. Then there's reverse osmosis water, which is basically a new technology to distill water. Filtered water is contaminated water that's been cleaned up. Then you have alkaline water that has minerals in it that are more alkaline than acidic. Ionized water is water that's had an electric current. And the problem with all the machines that I'd tried before is they were alkaline ionized water, which means they put calcium, magnesium, potassium to it and then put electric charge. What I didn't know is what Kangen water was, and this crazy machine is something called electrolyzed reduced water. Feels like a cure, it's not. There were a lot of pieces to Skylar's puzzle, but this was 72% of her puzzle. And it is straight science, and yes, it can save your life if you're ill. But if you don't make healthy choices, those health benefits aren't going to last. And so what we found is this electrolyzed reduced water is the best possible water for your body because it gets nutrition in faster than anything else. It pulls toxins out faster. You can literally drink a glass of water and feel energized. It improves your health on every level. And with some of the stuff we'll show at the end, it actually accelerates and increases the healing. because of its four properties, which are oxygen, hydrogen, and hydroxyl. A little bit of a picture story. If you take a look at this aquarium, that's kind of like the human body. It's a contained environment. It has a solution that's pH balanced. It's got live organisms. It's got something to filter the garbage out, just like the kidneys, the spleen, the liver. It's got respirators that oxygenate the water, much like lungs, and bacteria and things. Well, if you poured soda into this fish tank, you'd have a nasty looking aquarium. Well, if you've been drinking bottled water, RO water, soda, tea, coffee, Powerade, Propels, energy drinks, 5-hour energies, this is what the inside of you looks like. And people come to us and they feel horrible and they say, hey, I want to look like this on the inside. And so we do that. And the way that we do that is called cellular respiration. You know, I can get technical. Basically, it's getting the good stuff in faster and the bad stuff out. What makes Kangen water unique is Kangen water is actually restructured to fit aquaporins, which are the high-speed plumbing system for cells. This is the only water that hits that structure. That's one of the things that makes this company different and this machine different. It works better. So some real brief science. This is a regular cell right here. That's the aquaporin. You got hemoglobin here, you got a charge. Well, when your heart beats and you get an electric pulse, the cell collapses and that pushes out CO2 and toxins. When it pops back open, it brings in oxygen nutrition. Out with the bad, in with the good. Now, everybody knows that this water has an electric charge. So that makes this happen more effectively without stressing the heart or cardiovascular system. Even better is today's water supply is so contaminated that water molecules clump together. Well, this big cluster of water molecules won't fit in that hole. What the Enagic machine does is it disperses these so they streamline in. And it does it the most natural way in the world. Everybody says, oh, well, you know, it's not natural, it's not healthy, it's not good. The reality is electrolyzed reduced water is the most abundant water on the planet. When I met Balazs, he gave us the advice to go to Monza Cape Intercontinental in Okinawa, and that was our first big vacation, but you could watch the electrical storms come in across the ocean. And what was happening is the lightning would strike the water, and it would blow apart all these bonds, and it would release hydrogen, oxygen, and hydroxyl. Ironically, the charge lasts for about 3 or 4 days. Kind of sounds like one of our water machines. And so what happens then is, it's not a chemically altered water, it's electrically altered. And the term is dissociation of the water molecule. It's a big fancy term for you have H2O, and you rip off some hydrogen and oxygen. That gives you the 4 things that your body needs to run. A lot of people talk about the 4 properties of Kangen water. In my humble but somewhat more accurate opinion, they're wrong. It's the hydrogen, oxygen, and hydroxyl in a water that's been restructured for maximum absorption that creates its own energy. That is something that nobody else's water does. And it's very, very different than the alkaline water machines that you see where they add calcium, magnesium, or potassium. If you add a chemical to a water, it's changed. Alkalized water is electrically altered. So instead of adding the minerals that the clinical research shows is dangerous, you know, somebody said, oh, well, I read this article and it said alkaline water is dangerous. They're correct. It is dangerous. The medical research will show that alkaline water can increase calcium, magnesium, potassium. However, alkalized water is not. There's a vast amount of research. I've got a 3-inch ring binder of research just on the nervous system alone of the benefits. And I research it pretty regularly. There's no negative research on electrolyzed reduced water anywhere in the literature because it's basically what you should be drinking. Somebody says, well, alkaline water affects stomach acid. Chemically altered water will affect the stomach. Electrically altered water will not. Chemically altered water will build up in the system and can create issues. This water, the charge only lasts for 3 or 4 days. Therefore, it does not build up in the system. It is very different. And like I said, I've not currently found any negative research on PubMed in regards to this water? Short answer, this is the cell, this is how respiration works. See all these H's? Kangen water is the only water that will give you enough energy here on the membrane to get the Krebs cycle to work to produce energy. It also produces the hydroxyls to pull the garbage out. That's what makes it unique. Alkaline water as a whole will not do that. Alkalized water does. How did they do it? They said, hey, let's take that electrical storm. We'll play with some metal plates, and we'll electrocute those plates so that the water hits it, and we'll put it in a machine that's about the size of a coffee pot. And so what happens is, if this was that big cluster of water molecules, they break down into smaller groups. Well, if it needs to be 6 or smaller to get into the aquaporin, this breaks it down smaller and smaller. You could do 11.5 as 12 groups of 2 even. So that's what's going on with your water. Each time you get this little negative charge, that's energizing the cell, so it has a higher energy, or ORP. That's what that means. For a word picture, you take this cluster of grapes. If you're going to dump it into this jug, you're going to pull them all off that. Dump them in one at a time. This is the way water is. Take all those grapes off that thing and dump them in there. That's what the machine does. So you just get superior hydration. A lot of people want to do Google, want to research this and all that stuff. Google is not the way to do any clinical research on PubMed. On the internet. If you want to do real research, you got to look at PubMed. The reason you don't want to look at Google is specifically in the US right now, they're going to tell you you need to vote for Hillary, you need to vote for Johnson, and you need to vote for Trump. They can't all be right. There's a lot of opinion out there, but if you go to PubMed and look up things like electrolyzed reduced water, molecular hydrogen, active oxygen, hydroxyl, free radical scavengers, you'll see there's a ton of research on ERW. Another thing people always ask me is, well, how much should I drink? Well, a normal person in a normal environment should drink about 50% of your body weight in ounces every day on a bad day. If you have an acute health issue, or you live in Georgia like I do and you work in the yard, you should drink 75% of your body weight in ounces. We deal with a lot of chronic health issues, cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, fibromyalgia, and we start our patients off at 100% of their body weight in ounces per day of good water. Another exceptions to that, there are certain people that will say, well, I can't drink that much because my physician said so. They'll already know. Just have them drink the limited amount of water, but make it good Kangen water. And a big part of it is simply that, their health is their responsibility. In today's environment, cancer is 1 in 2 men, women 1 in 3. Diabetes in the US is approaching 25% of the population. That's just terrifying. And that doesn't even include all the other health conditions. Arthritis, Crohn's, autism, fibromyalgia, Alzheimer's, you name it, the list goes on and on and on. And so we really need to focus in on being healthier. Most people don't realize how dangerous and how much work it is to balance out what they put into their body. This is a pH scale test. This video is actually on YouTube. It's Dr. Michael Explains the Effects of Soda and Chlorine. I highly recommend it. But this right here is red and it'll make you rust on the inside. That's what oxidation is. The blues will make you beautiful. This right here is a 32-ounce pitcher of water. I added the drops and you can see they became this pretty blue. This right here is a tablespoon of Sprite. It is this bright orange color. What I did is I poured some of this water into the soda thinking it would balance out. Well, what it ended up doing was gave me a cup full of acid. I then poured this cup into the pitcher, and before I'm done pouring it, you can see that that 1 tablespoon of diluted soda has destroyed everything. It takes 18 gallons of high ORP water to neutralize 1 12-ounce Sprite. Powerade, Propel, bubbly, sparkly, Pellegrino water, club soda, you name it. It takes 18 gallons. Nobody can drink that much. So what the body does is it pulls 4 teaspoons of calcium out of your bones. How many people do you want osteoporosis or MS? That's the reason. They're so acidic, it shuts the body down. One of the things that people ask me all the time is, okay, I'm drinking the water, what else can I do to eat healthier? And we'll tell them the first thing is healthier foods. Eat according to your blood type. There's an app you can get at the App Store, and if you're an O blood type, you do better with proteins and green veggies. If you're an A blood type, you do better with fruits and veggies. B blood type, you can eat a lot of anything, just don't eat any chicken and don't eat any corn. It'll compromise your immune system. In doing that, you have to clean your fruits and veggies. And people don't realize that even the healthy foods, we eat organic, but if they come from outside the country, they're sprayed at the border for pestilence. And so here we are trying to teach our kids to eat healthier, but we're giving them the very pesticides that are causing their health issues. Now, contrary to what everybody thinks, pesticides are not, some big company trying to say we want to limit the population and all that stuff. The reality of pesticides are they're sprayed onto the fruits and veggies so that you can get a better yield on your crop. The problem is they're designed not to wash off in the rain because the farmers can't spray every time it rains. So what happens is it's designed not to wash off in the sink. So you need a better way to clean your fruits and veggies, and that's where the 11.5 comes in. These tomatoes right here were actually cleaned in tap water, and then I washed them again in 11.5, and that's what came off that. And these are, nature's sweet tomatoes that you just kind of pop the top off and eat on the way home from the store, or I used to anyways. And so the pesticides really have shown to destroy the digestive tract. People don't even realize that as you cook and steam your veggies, you're actually driving the surface pesticides deeper into the fruits and veggies. If you've got municipal tap water, there's a lot of chlorine in that water. Chlorine is a much bigger issue than anybody realizes. We actually get to thank the Germans in World War II and the Nazis for producing this. It's what they used for the gas chambers. What it actually is it's an iodine inhibitor. And this is a really important slide, and I'm actually going to come back to it in a few minutes. But if you have any health issues that are associated with a low thyroid, low energy, compromised immune system, taking a bath and taking a shower and cooking your foods in chlorinated water will absolutely affect your thyroid. If you cook potato, people will drink bottled water, but they don't ever cook with it. A lot of times people drink good water from the machine, but they don't think to actually cook with their Kangen water. Boil your spaghetti and throw the water out. No. If you're putting chlorine in your pasta, it's going straight into your system. Swimming pools, bathtubs. And so what happens is that dramatically affects the body. Another thing you can do with this machine is the 11.5 and the 2.5 you can use for cleaning and sterilizing and get rid of all of your household chemicals. It's unbelievable. My wife started to buy essential oils so we could have stuff that smelled good just because it didn't necessarily smell because there was no odor from the chemicals. It was kind of funny. But we use it for mirrors, fridges, floors, foods, all that. This is a funny thing, but our pets, we've got a lot of vets that now use this water. This says, hey, Henry, thanks for this. It looks great and all, but does your house have Kangen water? It's kind of funny. If I fill my dog's dish up, my wife has a Yorkie, with tap water, she kind of walks up to it to take a drink, smells it, and then kind of looks at me like, are you for real, Dad? She totally won't drink it. It's pretty funny. I'm going to cover something right now, and this is by far the most significant button on the machine, and I didn't even know what it was until I had the machine for over a year. In the world of disinfectant and wound care and cuts and infection, people like to bleach stuff. Well, this chart over here represents sodium hypochlorite or bleached. These are the bacteria in the organisms. You'll see a lot of them aren't killed. This is 2.5 acid water out of a typical water ionizer, and you'll see that it kills almost nothing. 2.5 acid water out of a competitor's machine is the equivalent of Dasani. It's just a 2.5 pH water. The 2.5 water that comes out of the SD501 and the Kangen 8 is called strong electrolyzed acid water, and it is the most powerful sterilant they currently know about by FDA standards. More than germicides, spectricides, virucides, it kills bacteria, molds, fungus, spores, all of it. And it does it usually in less than 30 seconds. The reason this is important to you is it is the $8,000 difference. And difference is actually spelled with an N, not an M. Sorry about that. The average cost of a hypochlorous acid machine for commercial use that produces SD501 levels of hypochlorous is approximately $8,000. Right there is the entire cost of a trifecta. The SD501 at only $4,000 is a 50% discount. The K8 at $5,000 is a discount. Even the Super is a discount at that rate. The problem with the industrial machines for hypochlorous is they don't produce an 11.5 that you can use to clean your fruits and veggies. So the next time somebody balks at $4,000 or $5,000, just say, well, for one button, it's $8,000. And you would be telling an accurate comparison. Briefly to hit this, hypochlorous acid happens when you take water and mix it with a salt solution in the presence of an electric charge. That provides 2.5 hypochlorous acid. Because it's unstable, it can't be isolated. You can't bottle it and sell it and keep it for weeks or go to the store and pick it up. You have to have a strong level of electrolysis in order to do this, because you have to dissociate the water molecule and the salt. So what happens is these things blow apart, the HOCl bind, and you get electrolyzed hypochlorous acid. Enagic is the only machine on the market that uses a salt solution. They're not doing it to produce 2.5 water, they're doing it to produce 2.5 hypochlorous acid, which is the reason that the Enagic machine got their medical device in Japan ranking was the hypochlorous acid for wound care and sterilization. The FDA caught up with Japan, and in 2009, they cleared it for sterilant for processing reusable medical devices, dental care, but it has to be used one time, generated on site within 24 hours. If you take and electrolyze regular tap water without the addition of a salt solution, you are not producing hypochlorous acid. You're just not. Now, the FDA here in the US has not evaluated the SD501 to my knowledge, and I'm pretty certain of it because I'm in the process of getting it evaluated for the hypochlorous. Hypochlorous acid is 100% biodegradable. If you get this in your mouth, it won't kill you. It'll whiten your teeth and kill staph and strep. It was discovered in the body because it's part of the immune system. It's what is in the neutrophils that cause your body, like when you cut yourself and your mom said, let it bleed, it'll clean it. It activates the hypochlorous acid when it hits the air, and that destroys the bacteria and the viruses. And it's also what starts the clotting process. Because of that, I started to use it for wound care. And there's a lot of studies going on right now. I'm involved with most of them because you can treat stuff that's intractable with antibiotics. Here's some third-party sterilization, and I can get this lab report to Balazs if you guys want a copy of it, but they tested against strep, E. coli, MRSA, Kripke. MRSA is the one that's the super bacteria that you can only get at the hospital, so is Kripke, it's the Klebsiella pneumonia, and they have no way to kill it in the hospitals except for hypochlorous acid. And here's the final report that shows in the independent studies that the Enagic machine did in fact meet and exceed the requirements set by the FDA. Here's a couple of quick case studies. This is my disclaimer. I'm not giving you medical advice. It's education, so you'll know what you've got. If you get hurt, go get it taken care of. Don't say Dr. Michael said. This was a lady that cut her thumb in the kitchen. She went to the hospital to get stitches and got a MRSA infection, and it ate the bone right out of her thumb. You can actually see the gangrene settling in down to the base of the thumb. She started to soak it in 2.5 for 5 minutes, then soaked it in 11.5 for 10 minutes, 5 times a day, saved the thumb. Head wounds are pretty serious. They bleed profusely. This was actually my sister who fell off an aluminum ladder, split her head, and you can see that it's barely bleeding. She soaked it in 11.5 and it started to clot up. They did the stitches, and less than 6 weeks later, you can barely see the scar. We use it for all kind of head wounds. You know, here's, I got cut in my leg, my son banged his head. This was how we actually, right here is how we got involved with some of the wound care specialists here in Atlanta. This was a guy that had gallbladder surgery and the incision got infected and ended up with MRSA. And 2 weeks later, he had it internally, and they put him on a wound vac, which means they were sucking poison out of him. And they did that for 7 months before he tried the water. In 18 days, they removed the wound vac and the margins were clear. This is, if anybody knows anybody that's got diabetes or diabetic ulcers, this is where they soaked the toe, and this was actually in a hospital room, this picture here. He was scheduled to have his toe amputated on Thursday. This was a Tuesday. This is what Thursday, Friday looked like. They kept the toe. This was a week, he kept the toe. This was a gentleman that was about to have his finger amputated. He had gangrene from diabetes, and it was 6 months in the treatment. There's 3 weeks, 6 weeks. So that's what your machine can do. Let's talk a little bit about Enagic real quick. I'm sure you guys know about it, but I'm going to hit the highlights anyways. Enagic is the only OEM manufacturer of water machines in the industry. That's a big deal because everybody parts out their services. They actually have 100% control of the manufacture of everything right down to plates and wire nuts. They've been around since the 1970s, where they started off in hospitals. So they're the oldest company in the industry. Brief history, they were established in '74, used in Japan. They went to a domestic unit in '94. They did a soft launch in the US in '03. They've opened up Asia, Canada, Europe, Mexico, Australia, Italy, Philippines, Europe, Malaysia, and they've just kept growing. And part of the reason is, some people, oh, it's got the Gold Seal Award. Well, this is actually the reason that it's grown so fast. The Water Quality Association is an international award that is given where they test everything as it pertains to water, not just water ionizers, but water filters, pipes, plumbing, valves, water ionizers, pressure sensors, pools, anything that's associated with water. It's like the Olympics, and they give a bronze, silver, and gold certificate. Enagic has held on to the Gold Seal Award since it was for almost 10 years now. And so they've actually got the #1 spot. The people that know what is going on with water say, this is the best, plain and simple. That's what that certificate means. That's kind of like, we're clarifying that this is the Mercedes of the water industry. Now, Enagic makes a lot of machines. They range in price from $1,500 to $6,000. And everybody always asks me, well, why can't I just buy the cheapest one? And my reply is, well, you obviously can. Just make sure it does what you want it to do. The SD501 series is the flagship. The white unit is the cheapest machine that gets you FDA levels of hypochlorous in the cleaning water. It produces all 7 waters. The ORP is about -800, and it comes in 3 variants. The white unit is 4,000, the platinum is 4,300, and then there's an under-the-counter unit that a lot of people like because they don't want the machine sitting on the counter. It is $5,000. I never sell this machine. If you're going to spend $5,000, I'm going to have you step up to the Kangen ID. And this is the one that I recommend the most. At $5,000, it's only $300 more than the platinum unit, but it has an extra plate in it. The ORP that I've tested out of this machine, I've gotten over 1050. They advertise negative 900, so it's a full 20% stronger than an SD501. It's going to last you more than 20 years. It produces all the different types of water. It does do the hypochlorous acid and the cleaning water. If you've got somebody that has a restaurant, a dentist, a doctor's office, a vet, a cleaning company, I'll have them get the super because it does everything else the other machine does, but it produces the 2.5 and the 11.5 in a high volume. Stepping down the line, people are like, well, that's a bit much. Do you have something around 2,500 bucks? For $2,400, your ORP is going to be about half that of a K8. It does produce the hypochlorous acid, but it doesn't meet the full sterilization criteria of the SD501. It just doesn't. The 11.5 will clean your veggies, just not quite as much. At the low end is $1,480. This is the R unit. People use it for travel. It's 1/3 the power of a K8. It's 1/3 the price. It does not make any type of 2.5 hypochlorous acid. It does not have the solution. It does not make 11.5 cleaning water. When somebody says, oh, well, I just looked at the Echo, Lifeways, Alcaviva, Vesta, Vesper, Jupiter, Microlite, Ion, this is the machine they should actually be comparing it to, because those machines do not produce hypochlorous acid and they don't get it done. It's a $1,400 machine. So everybody that's comparing and buying these other machines is way overpaying for, a Jupiter at $29.99. They're paying twice what it's worth. Finally, the last machine that they produce, your showers will never be the same. I'm going to be honest here. I was on the little bus on this. I thought it was basically an over glamorized chlorine filter until I started to dig into it and use it. I only got my Anespa about a month and a half ago. We got it for my wife's skin, and her skin cleared up. My 17-year-old daughter's skin cleared up. My son's 13-year-old son's skin cleared up almost immediately. And my hair stopped falling out within 8 days of using this. It was the chlorine that was just wiping out my hair. And so I started to dig into it a little bit more. And while it does filter out chlorine, there are some natural hot springs in Japan that are known for anti-aging. This is the only machine on the market that has that. Remember how I talked about chlorine? Well, it pulls these things out. That's the problem with fluorides, the bromines, and the chlorines in the water system. These halogens compete and destroy your thyroid. If you're using an Anespa, you will no longer be bathing in these toxins. This is the Radium Hot Springs in Japan. They're the only company that is allowed to mine this and use these minerals and actually put them into the filter of the Anespa. So when you take a shower, it is the equivalent of sitting in these anti-aging, life-inspiring spas in Japan. The water runs down from the mountains, they leach the minerals, and it does a phenomenal job on healing all sorts of skin conditions. So those are the machines. Balaj asked me to touch on the competition. Basically, there really isn't any. If you start off with a liquid saline solution, if it says it doesn't have it, it's the equivalent of an R unit. Back up from there, it's got the biggest power supply. Yes, it does have a transformer, but that's because it's the only way to ramp 110 up to 220. And then it uses a switch mode power supply and has a condenser. So it actually has the most advanced power supply of any of the water units of any brand. You can actually start making 9.5 and unplug it from the wall, and you see that it'll run for about 5 to 10 seconds. You need about 250,000 potential electrolysis units to create stable water ionization. The SD5 is at about 360,000. The average done by a competitor is 14,000 or 4% of the power. And the reason that it does this is it's got the most amperage. It has the plates that are the largest. Competitor plates are 50 square inches. These are about 90. Anybody that says it's an energy saver, necessary minerals, reduced power, fancy plate pitch, or lifetime warranties, they're basically a scam. The best part about this is their cleaning program. Because our plates eroded and we had so many issues, I won't have a machine that I can't clean. In fact, most municipal water supplies are getting so bad today that Enagic actually has a designated team that completely detail your machine inside and out on a regular basis. I told you I had about 8 or 9 machines beforehand. These are the competitors' plates. That's about the size. These were 9 months old, 2 years old, and these were 6 years old. You can see these look like they're brand new. Here I am taking it apart. This right here isn't mold. It's actually where the platinum flaked off the plates, and that's what was giving my kids the heavy metal toxicity. You can see how the plates got burned. There's the mold in the lines from the machine that never needed cleaning. This is another machine. The plates actually got so hot they turned scorched purple. There's mold, corrosion, mold in the lines. So really, there's a reason why Enagic is becoming the forefront and leader in the industry that it is. That's why you're starting to see them in cafes. If you can't clean a machine, you can't put it in a food vendor's place. Here we've got it in restaurants, we've got it in cafes, we've got it in high-end restaurants. It's being served everywhere. I was in a restaurant in Cincinnati, Ohio just this weekend. Best food I've ever had, and they have an Enagic machine right there on, served me Kangen water. In Japan, they actually have Kangen cafes because they do the noodles and they cook them all in the Kangen water. This is a commercial setup where a guy has a cleaning company, uses the 11.5 for carpets. This is my wife and I. This is where we met Balaj. We actually went to Japan and we saw the turmeric fields, and they irrigate the fields and they process everything with it. So there you have the machine aspect. It's Enagic versus everyone else because it's the industry standard. It's got the best maintenance, cleaning, best plates, best power supply. It's the oldest company in the industry. It has the most types of water, and it produces hypochlorous acid. For me personally, I've tried so many machines. This is the only one that's actually worked for Skylar. I have tested about 3 dozen machines now, looking for one better. I love Enagic. It's not a loyalty issue. It's I love my daughter more, and if I found something better, I would use that. I just haven't. It produces 7 types of highly bioavailable water. It's used by thousands of doctors and hospitals all over the world. The drinking water has hydrogen, oxygen, and antioxidants. It's also used for disinfecting, cleaning, and food prep. That's just how we use it. That's what we do with it. You saw the Yukon fields. I'm going to take it. I'm right at about my limit. I got about 5 minutes here, so I'm going to steal a little bit of the Q&A. Is that okay, Julian? Or somebody? Tell me I'm not disconnected.
Yeah.
Okay. So Yukon is a sister company. It's the turmeric. This stuff is amazing. I alluded to the fact that we do pharmaceutical grade nutrition in our practice. This is the Yukon, the turmeric that we use, and we do not use it because it's part of the business. I actually tried to not use it because I wasn't a big fan of the auto ship. That's why I love the water machines. There was nothing else. Bottom line is, this is the best turmeric on the planet. Here's why. They've been using turmeric for thousands of years, and it can replace a lot of different medicines. In fact, there's been limitations because of patents on medications, but they still can't match what the turmeric does. So according to the molecular targets and therapeutic uses of curcumin, this is the best thing to use for a lot of health conditions. It replaces over 40 different types of medication. The problem is that pharmaceutical companies don't make any money on it. There have been studies that show that it's the most active form of curcumin they can find, fights infections, cancers, inflammation, and treats digestive issues. It's really starting to turn the drug model on end because there's no side effects to it. Nobody has been found to be allergic to turmeric that I'm aware of yet. Everybody has a positive response. It lowers blood pressure. You can work with diabetics, digestive issues, ulcers, inflammation, Alzheimer's, fibromyalgia. They all respond extremely well. That's in the clinical research and in my practice. It's an antioxidant, antiviral, antifungal, shows the anti-cancer properties. This is all clinical research. They're showing you with diabetes, allergies, arthritis, Alzheimer's, chronic illnesses, malignant, and it's all documented. This isn't me saying, oh, Otto Warburg said, which by the way, Otto Warburg never said that cancer can't exist in an alkaline environment. Stop using that, it's not true. There's at least 8 different strains of cancer that thrive in an alkaline environment. So just be careful that you understand that that's not a true statement. Here's a classic example. This was tested by Georgia Tech. This was a medical tech. This is the Rouleau factor, where the blood is clumping into little chains and they stack up, and you have very, very poor oxygenation and nutrition. This little stack that's about 1 inch long has about 15 red blood cells. Well, all of the ones in the middle aren't working. This is Rouleau after taking Ukon and drinking 11.5 after 10 minutes. You see how everything pops open? So you're just going to get better oxygenation, better hydration, better nutrition in. You're going to get rid of toxins, CO2, way faster with this style of blood than you will with this style of blood. There's Abby and I in the turmeric fields. There's the factory, more of the machines, the processing. That alone is good enough in the fact that it's raised and used with Kangen water. But what most people don't realize is there's never been any contamination in the northern parts of the country of Japan and Okinawa. Enagic makes their own fertilizer just for these farmers. So you are literally getting the most organic product in the world from the ground up. The ground has never had pesticides. The ground has never had GMO products. It is the ultimate source of an organic turmeric. Their production facility is the only one using Kangen water. There you go, it's the best. It's got the most energy right from the irrigation and the processing, right down to the bottom line. If you're taking turmeric right now and you get it in a bottle form with a powder, as soon as you open that powder, the whole bottle is oxidized in less than 48 hours. That's why they individually pack each unit. This is a list of things that there's clinical research showing that curcumin helps. Here's more. So the list is just unbelievable. They make a couple of products. One is the Ukon, one is the tea. The Ukon tea is really good for people with chronic pain, fibromyalgia, arthritis because of its inflammatory properties. And you can get a bundle pack, which is the tea and the tablets. There's the different ways that it breaks up. Ukon does work with Enagic's compensation. I'm not going to get into the compensation because, but I was going to touch on a couple of things real quick. In our professional opinion, we don't deal with the water as an individual thing, like you just need water. We deal with it from a health standpoint where somebody needs an spa because they've got to stop poisoning their system. Then they need to have the best possible water they can drink, which is the K8. It does so many things, it pays for itself. Buying a K8, getting hypochlorous acid, you're going to spend the same amount as you get all 3 of these for if you were to buy a commercial hypochlorous. And of course, we just talked on the Ukon. So we do a trifecta, which is really becoming the rage right now. To touch on the business for a moment, 80% of the people are end users. 20% of the people get involved to some level. I didn't get into this for the business. I was a really successful chiropractor with a great office. I bought it for my daughter. I shared it with some people. We ended up selling $130,000 our first year by sharing water, which became a second income. And then when the The average income in America is like $2,000 a month. Home-based businesses, you need the tax deductions. Here's the growth rate. I know the guys are going to get into this. They do a great job explaining it. With the trifecta, you know, if you look at this real quick, you have to get to 100 machines to become a 6A. With a trifecta, you can do the same thing in a total of 33. When you become a 6A, just 10 trifecta sales is $33,000. If you sell one machine every day and a half, you're going to put $1 million cash commission in your pocket. That's 6 sales per week. There's no other company in the planet that I'm aware of that has this type of compensation. So do your trifecta, help people grow. You'll promote. It's really easy to promote. Just get 2 people to your current level and away you go. This is what it's done for us. Abby and I spent $250,000 each for our education and spent another $100,000 in our office. And then we were goal setting and realized that 60% to 70% of our income came from network marketing. So now I'm a professional network marketer for the whopping total investment of about $8,000 that I invested in my health and my family. And it partners us with the best company in the world. And now we just help people live their dreams. I've done some reading. This is Japan. The biggest thing that it did for us was it allowed us to go on vacation. Hey, Balaj, there's the hotel you told us to stay at. Our room was right there, and I snorkeled in that water. I got in trouble, though, trying to pull oysters out. I go on vacations with my family a lot. We bought our dream property after 10 months in the thing. Our address is 4684 Waters Road. So there you have it. Abby and I, we like to do health and wellness. If we can help anyway else, let us know. If I didn't answer any questions and we don't get it in the Q&A, you can send them there and I'll be glad to answer them. I am ending the share. Anybody who wants to jump on and take over, feel free.
Man, you crushed it. Thanks so much.
You told me to cover a lot.
Man, you know, I'm pretty sure I've been watching the chat. I know you were busy on presenting, but the chat has been blowing up with gratitude and positive comments, and everyone's really learning a lot. So thanks again for your time coming out here. We appreciate you. We know you love this stuff so much. And I'll hand it over to Jang and the rest of the crew here to kind of give their feedback on everything as well.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks again so much, Michael. That's amazing to be able to go over a lot of that stuff. That's some of the stuff that sometimes people don't even realize how powerful machines are. That people have, like, there's a reason why these are the products that we're working with, and now when people can kind of have that different level of perspective.
And I do want to clarify. I bought the unit because my daughter pooped. All of that was me trying to figure out and answer people's questions. The water just works. Don't get hung up on, well, how many hydroxyls or no. It just works. You're just better. Just drink it, whether you understand that or not.
It's exactly, and this is the thing, is like, it's good to have that. Like, they don't need to understand how it works, but when you can break all that down and see it, and they're like, okay, that's proof. I don't need to understand all of it, just for the exact same reason that I don't need to understand how electricity works to know that when I flip the switch on, that my light turns on. Right? That's really essentially, you don't need to know how to work all of it, but it's amazing to get that perspective and see that there is so much going on behind it. Not that they need to understand it, but
it's just listening to Think and Grow Rich, and it talked about Dale Carnegie's. He was on being interviewed because of a liable thing, and he says, you do realize that I can just push a button on my desk and I can get the answer to any question I have. I don't need to know it.
Yeah.
Here's my answer to you people. You don't need to know this. The videos are done.
Yeah.
You push the button.
Yeah, exactly. And guys, this is a lot of stuff too. Like this is Balaj will be putting a lot more training and stuff like this inside of the back office as well, because it is good stuff to have, and it's not something that you guys need to, like I said, know all of it, but it's great to have the videos to be able to go, hey, go check this out, and you can get all the information that you need. You don't need to be the expert. You can leverage it, just like we talk about all the time. You don't need to be the one explaining all the details like we do on the webinar. You just say, go watch the web. You know what I mean? Like, don't get so hung up on all the details.
You throw me into any of those Facebook groups. And tag me if there's questions. I can probably answer them on your forum, because I'm sure more than one person will have questions. I'll be glad to do that. I think I'm in everybody's group. I don't really check everybody else's, but a few friends. Below if you count.
Awesome. So yeah, everyone's pumped. Everyone's looking through all the comments. Everyone's super grateful for all this stuff. It's all recorded, guys. It is, and we also are going to have a lot of other training on stuff that Balazs is putting together. So you guys will be able to see all of that and have access to all of that stuff. But again, yeah, thank you so much, dude. And maybe we can open up if you have time. I don't know if we can open up to any questions or anything.
The rest of the night, the girls are in bed.
Awesome. So if you guys do have any questions at all for Michael, now would be the time. If you guys have any questions or anything like that you'd like to get answered. If not, then everyone's just super pumped. Thank you. Excellent.
Hey, there's a couple questions in the Q&A section. I don't know if you saw those yet.
Perfect. Is Kangen 3 water only for pets? I don't even know.
Kangen 3 water?
I don't. Is Kangen water okay for pets?
Yeah.
That's on the Level Up R. You know how it has the 3 settings? So Kangen 3 would be 9.5. And the question was, is it okay for pets?
Yes, it is. Absolutely. We even take care of ticks, cuts, bites with it. Okay, so I'm gonna be honest. Our Yorkie, my wife's Yorkie, jumps in the shower, so she bathes with the Ines spot.
Another one here is it safe to take the Yukon being pregnant? I'm sure it is.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure you drink a lot of water, because especially once you go into labor and your water breaks, you'll hydrate twice as fast. We've got a bunch of midwives using it now, because when your water breaks, you have to kind of maintain a level of hydration, and this hydrates so much faster, right straight through labor and delivery. The Yukon is great. The curcuminoids actually cause the nervous system to develop faster and stronger.
Awesome. Is it 100% incorrect for me to call it alkaline ionized water, or should I be calling it electrolyzed reduced water?
It isn't alkaline ionized. That's incorrect. I've gone round and round with Go at corporate and Don Prosser and Mr. Fukuda, and they're like, it's kind of a translational thing for them. Alkaline, alkalized, same difference. No, it's like tomato and potato. Alkaline water is water by definition that has more calcium, magnesium, and potassium, or alkaline minerals in it. It usually adds those. The ionization is the electricity. If you use so much electricity that the water blows apart and you have hydroxyl ions, you now have electrolyzed water, or alkalized. They're polar opposites.
All right. Do you know if there's any medications that should not be taken or mixed with turmeric?
Not with turmeric, but don't take your medications with the Kangen water as a whole. Because of the saturation levels, what you have to be careful of with the water, for instance, people buy Advil or whatever, and it's 200 milligrams, and they take it with regular water, you get about 50 milligrams out of 200. So when you get prescription strength ibuprofen at 800 milligrams, you're really only getting 200. The problem is if you take Kangen water with a 200 milligram tablet, you're going to get about 180 milligrams of ibuprofen into the system, because it just hammers it. So if you got people on blood pressure medication, it'll make the blood pressure medication, it'll drop your levels because it's a much higher concentration. So you never want to take medications with Kangen water. As far as the turmeric, there's no reason not to that I'm aware of. I've not seen any contraindications or had any problems with it.
Okay. Where can I find all this? Where can I find all this research? Show friends. So PubMed.org. PubMed. All right, guys. PubMed.org. Is there a specific process selling to businesses? I don't know.
Yeah, if somebody's got a big corporate sale, like we'll do Starbucks and Chick-fil-A, if we're grouping and I'll go do like, we're looking at 1,700 units to one company, 3,400 units to another company. One company's looking at 22,000 units. There's a bulk sales thing that I kind of fell into because I became the expert. And so I work with people on that for group sales, but restaurants and stuff, you just get to know people and start talking about it. Go to a restaurant, bring some 11.5 and say, hey, can I have one of your salads, and wash their salad? And when the water turns brown, they get grossed out. And then they're like, you mind if I come back and talk later with your manager? I mean, just that kind of stuff.
Okay, so my aunt has been in the hospital for a month, staph and other infections in her leg. They're using wound vac machines, not going very well. She's a cancer survivor that has lupus, lots of problems. What would be the best way to approach her doctor about this?
Just bring it in and start corking her leg.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. The lady that was had the husband with a toe, she just brought it in and it's like got them. They're like, "What are you doing?" I'm soaking it in hypochlorous acid. Where'd you get that? We make it at home. Oh, whatever. And then once it clears up, they go, "Okay, so what was that now?" And that's really kind of the way that it works. You can talk to the doctors. I really can't make myself available to handle that. There is a Dr. Michael Explains Hypochlorous Acid video on YouTube. If you can get somebody there to watch it, they'll go, oh yeah, let's use that. But that's what that's for.
Okay. Another one, my aunt was diagnosed with breast cancer and she's supposed to start chemo and radiation treatment on the 7th of November. Would this water help her?
It's always going to help because it's going to manage the. Okay, what Otto Warburg actually did was he proved that cancer starts from an oxygen deprivation at the cellular level. If you take a healthy cell and you reduce its oxygen by 35% in a 48-hour window, you turn off the mitochondria. When the mitochondria turns off, you're no longer producing standard energy. And so what happens is it converts to glycolysis, burning sugar. That's the technical definition of a cancer cell. That's what he did actually do his research on. He never said it can't exist in an alkaline environment. What he said is most alkaline environments that are saturated with hydrogen, oxygen, and hydroxyl are alkaline. It needs the hydrogen, oxygen, and the hydroxyl to kill the cancer because it turns the mitochondria back on. If you take Sprite and pour 5 tablespoons of baking soda into it, it will become alkaline, and if you drink it, you will get sick. So, you know, that's for the alkaline aspect. So for the breast cancer or any type of cancer, it is the best water you can drink. It's a big piece of the puzzle, but it's definitely a puzzle. I wouldn't say, oh, don't do chemo, just drink the water. That would be ridiculous. She may or may not need to do chemo. There's a lot of other options available, but in all those options, the water plays a part.